Hello.
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 How you doing?
Pretty okay. It's been like 10 years since we've spoken to one another.
It has, or
It's been like,
thereabouts. Um, so first of all, I do regret not being able to do this Holodomor conversation as early as I'd hoped to. Still,
exactly the Great Hunger.
I
Wait,
keep getting fucking caught up with other things, and it's like there's actually so much to read about this that I didn't even know about. So I was like, yeah, it's gonna take me a
should I
while. I
turn
don't even,
myself
yeah.
on? How do I even do this?
You want your
Hold
camera
on.
on? You mean? I guess you could. Yeah, I can do that.
I'm
Let's
on.
put you
Yes,
here.
I'm on. See,
Okay.
HRT did wonders to my hair.
Oh, cool. There you go.
That's true. It used to be much thinner. This is the thing that I'll use in our debate. See?
Okay.
It's Wielki Głód w Ukrainie. It says now Ukraine here, but the language changed ever since the full-scale invasion.
Who wrote that one?
It's not a book by anyone. It's just primary sources and documents.
Oh, fuck me. Well,
It has an intro, a historical intro,
okay.
and it also has intros by both presidents of Ukraine and Poland. It's not a new book, so it has Lech Kaczynski, who died in the Smolensk catastrophe way
Okay.
back when, the Polish 9/11. And then you have Mr. Hold on, who was the president of Ukraine at that time? Viktor Yanushchenko.
Okay. Cool.
So we got this.
Is that easy enough to find in English?
I'm afraid not. It's been published by the Polish. It's been co-made by the Polish and Ukrainian governments.
Well, that's
It's
just not
been
fair, is it?
sent. It's not fair. It's been sent to my father post-mortem.
Okay. Well, means I'll need to do my work. Anyway, what did you want to talk about today?
Today,
Yeah.
about a lot of things. About the EU. Did you know that this is the 20th? And should I introduce myself to the audience?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Lucy Hazeh, not Hayes, even though some people like to say Hayes, saying that it sounds like a cyberpunk character. But I'm the biggest Polish Jewish trans streamer.
Is that true?
It is true,
Yeah,
but
good for you.
it's good on the merit of me being the only Polish trans streamer.
Yeah, well, don't tell people that second part.
Well, it's still an achievement, sort of, kind of, if you think about it, maybe, possibly. So.
Yeah, I think so. And you'd be proud.
And ever since when we've talked, I've been like 500 subscribers on YouTube, and now I'm 1,200.
That's
I think.
over 100% increase. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, happy for you.
And now I can monetize, even though the views don't give me much money, but it's okay. The
Oh,
views
it's a
will
bit of a
come.
climb, yeah. But it
It's
seems like
okay.
you're going in the right direction, so yeah, nice one.
Feels like it. So I went to, since it's the 20th anniversary of Poland joining the EU today,
Okay.
I went to an anti-European Union rally by the far, far right.
Yeah.
The far right that is so far right that it criticizes the far right party that just lost power.
We're talking far right by Polish standards, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty far right.
That's pretty far right, saying that the European Union is stealing away Poland's autonomy and Poland's sovereignty.
In what way? I feel like Poland, from my understanding, Poland seems to have quite a lot of control over like their borders and all that kind of shit. Is it because of? I remember the EU sanctioned Poland at one point, though. Yeah. What's their big complaint? Yeah.
Because there were no concrete complaints. It was just it was just a lot of nonsense, basically. It was just a lot of very broad, very vague nonsense. That's just plus conspiracy theories. The only talk I managed to have was with an elected politician
Okay.
from the Confederacy Party.
They're called the Confederacy Party.
Yeah, the
Okay.
furthest right party in Poland.
Wow.
And she told me that if she was given the okay to go to, she would go to Putin and she'd negotiate peace, no problem.
Okay. That is a very popular far right tactic. It's always just to say I could end the war because if you don't have any power,
Yeah,
you can say that. Yeah, it works.
they say, wait, do you think that Putin's like a guy that you'd like to have peace with? She said, yeah, of course. Like, I know you've probably heard about it. She told me, you've heard about the peace talks that almost happened. Zelensky was on the brink of signing the peace treaty, but Boris Johnson,
The dastardly Boris. Yeah.
Boris Johnson torpedoed it. And she asked, you heard about it, right? And at that point, I said, yeah, I've heard about it. I've heard it was nonsense.
Oh no. Yeah, the timelines don't really match up, and it also just doesn't
Because
make
she
sense.
saw
Yeah.
my Ukraine thing.
Okay.
So she spotted it, and then she sort of soon after ended the conversation. But she said she had to proof check the Boris Johnson claim that it was nonsense with her far right circles.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
something.
So yeah, basically she could end the war, and she said that there's a European army incoming that will be actually ruled by Germany, and then Germany will just enter with its new army into Poland and never leave.
Oh, really? The
Yeah,
okay.
and that we need a Polexit.
A Plexit.
Polexit,
I
like
feel.
Poland and
Oh, they call
exit.
it pole exit. Okay.
Yeah,
They could just shorten it to Plexit. Surely, like no one's
but
gonna
that sounds
ask
like
questions.
some, I don't know, Polexit sounds like some construction material
I mean,
name.
they all sound stupid, don't they? Like, because Candace Owens had Blexit. Brexit was fucking stupid because half the politicians would accidentally say breakfast when they were saying Brexit.
What?
Yeah,
Breakfast.
yeah. And then there was Legsit. Legsit. What the fuck was Legsit again? Oh, that was left wingers who supported Brexit because they thought that they could use it as a springboard for some socialist international or some shit. I don't even fucking know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and of course, it was a there was I recorded a lot of it. I'll translate it and upload it. The organizer screaming about the degeneracy and the fags and the transes.
Mm.
So and about everything basically, all the conspiracy theories under the sun you could think of were at this thing. It was pretty pathetic as well because very little people showed up.
Yeah.
Very small amount
That's
of
good.
people showed up to this thing.
We have that
So
in
it's like,
Scotland as well. Like we have the SDL, who are the Scottish Defence League, but because immigration's just never been much of a problem here, it's always just like five guys in the rain looking sad. They just have their
well, there
signs
were
and then
more
they
than
leave. Yeah.
five, but you could see the very clearly the beginning of the march and the end, which normally in big events isn't something that you can clearly just
Oh, wow.
And oh yeah, they complained, of course, about Ukraine as well, about refugees,
Okay.
how
Of
bad
which
they
there are a
are,
few.
and
Yeah.
how different their culture is. I thought, wait, of all the immigration groups to cry about different culture, we were the same country for hundreds of years.
Hmm.
We share 70% vocabulary.
Yeah. I've been told that some Polish people kind of resent Ukraine because of like they say that they ruined Lviv and shit. Right? I've heard that before.
Ruined. How?
Yeah. I don't know because by making it less Polish, I guess. I don't
By
know.
adding Cyrillics?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
There was this very famous Polish politician, Jacek Kuroń, who was born in Lviv, and it was this weird situation in which some relative of his in marriage was at the head of the Ukrainian army when there was the Ukrainian-Polish war, and the other relative was at the head of the Polish army.
Okay.
It was very wild, very famous Polish politician, and he clearly came out and say, "I'm pretty happy that Lviv is Ukrainian."
Well, there's no going
It was a
back, I'd hope.
complicated. There's a complicated thing, the whole Lviv thing, especially after World War One. I think we've talked about it last time.
Yeah, it's definitely no
Lvov,
good guys, but yeah,
Lvov,
lots of,
Lviv.
yeah.
And you could go and call other Polish cities with the Ukrainian nomenclature because there's a rule. If there's an uf, you change it to if. So you could go instead of Kraków, you could Krakow. You could go Krakiv
Hmm.
and be okay.
Okay.
Say it in Ukrainian.
I don't know. Whenever I think of people renaming towns to their language in like that part of Europe, I just think of like Nazis doing it in Poland. So yeah,
I mean, you should be up to the times and stop calling Kaliningrad Kaliningrad and call it Krulewiec or Königsberg at least.
Kleinensberg.
Königsberg, like the
Who who had it there? Who called it that?
East Prussia. It was part of East Prussia.
Ah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay.
So it had a
Cool.
German name.
I mean, it's probably quite good that we grew up in Europe around the time that the borders kind of chilled.
Yeah. Although in Poland they sort of chilled with the USSR just deciding we're taking part of Germany, we're
Mm-hmm.
putting it in Poland. And then we're just sort of taking out hundreds of thousands of people from this city and away with you
Yeah.
somewhere else. A very interesting time. But it's just okay now. Now it's just a propaganda talking point of Russia that Poland will invade Ukraine anytime now and take over the West.
Oh, really? The
Yeah,
fuck?
it's been a talking point since the beginning of the full-scale invasion.
Is that well? I know that in Hungary, I know like Orban has sympathy with Putin, but is that the case in Poland as well? I thought most Polish
No,
people were very against Putin,
no,
right?
no,
Yeah, yeah.
there's no sympathy.
Okay, yeah,
That's
cool.
why that's why the talking point rings so silly.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because
Thankfully.
nobody wants any territory back.
Hmm. Okay.
That's just not a thing at all. And there's been, I mean, in Hungary, certain extreme parties want the Transcarpathia back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some of them did sort of postulate that, like the groups that are farther right from Orban.
Yeah. See, at least
And
we never really have that. It's ironic we don't really have that problem in Scotland and England for a while because even though it's the same island, Scotland and England were actually separate land masses at one point. They were separated by water, and then like 500 million years ago, they smashed into each other, and that's why Scotland is all hills and England's all flat. Like that's why. So our border is actually fairly natural in that sense. Like it's two different rocks that got knocked together.
hopefully, Polish and Ukrainian relations will become nice again since the farmers stopped blocking all the border passings.
Yeah, I heard Anna complaining about the the farmers. Yeah, I feel like every country is like that though. Farmers are just assholes. It's the same
Yeah,
here. If
but
I go like
they
5 miles in any direction, I just end up in farmer, homophobic, incest, like fucking racist country. Yeah.
I went to 2 farmer protests. They call themselves peasants.
Yeah.
Yeah, they. I even sent Anastasia an interview I've done with a peasant.
Oh, you do those interviews on your stream, or are those like street stuff?
Street stuff, but I've translated them and uploaded them
Oh, okay. So when you do your interviews today with the right wingers, did you film that or did you record it
Yeah, I
on audio?
filmed it
Okay, so it's going to go on your
from
channel.
the politician. Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
it's gonna be a thing. You do real life work,
Yeah, you should send me that. I'd watch it.
sort of. Yeah, do you want me to send you you want to do a live react of a peasant interview?
Yeah, peasant and the far right person. Yeah. You don't really get to do that much of that here because all the crazy stuff tends to happen in London, and then the more crazy stuff happens in America. So I'm like, yeah, but
Like
if I
I've
could do
learned
that, like I would do that all the time. Yeah.
I've learned so many things. Like there are no individual farmers in Ukraine. There are only huge holdings
Okay.
that have 500,000 hectares of land.
Hmm.
And my mom was like, I know Ukraine's big, but how big do they imagine it to be? That all holdings have at least from 500,000 to 1,000,000 hectares.
Yeah. What the fuck?
And it's wild. It's just, it's a nice, you're gonna enjoy. You're gonna enjoy the interviews. On the second protest, it got a bit wild because the protesters threw pyrotechnics. The police had to get involved. I even got gassed slightly, and a ball-like object hit me in the face.
Oh God.
It got more intense. The second protest,
Uh.
and it was very strange because a week earlier, I interviewed this peasant/farmer guy. That's one of the interviews that I uploaded. And then when I was about to leave, out of the ground, almost like out of nowhere, out of thin air, the same guy that I interviewed a week before stood next to me and was like, "This is exactly what I was afraid of happening." Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, don't
And
really
gave
get
me
any of that kind of excitement over here, but maybe I should go and seek it out more often. Who knows?
exactly. You should go to Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, like, because when protests happen here, they're all just, even if it's really extreme stuff, like they're so polite. Like even the anti-vaxxers or even like a lot of the like Palestine stuff, it's all just everyone's just very chill over here.
It was not polite at all. The second one,
Yeah.
I tried to film the police rushing in on people.
Okay.
I did my best to catch good things. I did catch the police starting to gas people. That's how I got gassed.
Okay.
So yeah, it was good footage. I'm not sure if it's good to release on YouTube though. Like, would it be okay to release footage of a person kneeling and crying from being gassed on YouTube?
Yeah, it goes up all the time. People do that.
Yeah, isn't it TOS or something?
I don't think so. Definitely not afterwards, because I know when Charlottesville happened, there were loads of those guys who were using milk to get the pepper spray out of their eyes,
Oh yeah,
crying
milk.
about. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
heard water is bad to do.
Yeah, because I think water spreads it or some shit. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no, I don't think there's anything TOS about that. You can maybe just look around for it on YouTube and see what happens. It might get demonetized, but it's just like the video. But yeah, I think you're still allowed to do it.
Although the main bulk of my content is talking about Ukraine, the
Mhm.
war. Just basically cover what's going on in the war every day. And that's my thing.
Where are you at with the war now? What's been? I haven't followed it in the last couple of weeks.
Well, unfortunately, the aid is a little slow to get to the front, and Russians are gaining ground. That's the situation. It's difficult.
Okay. How long have Russia been? Is it? I don't think it's large amounts of ground they're taking. Is it, or is it going
No,
up?
not large,
Yeah.
but they're still gaining ground, which
Mm.
is not something that should be happening. And it would not be happening if aid was given in proper quantities and at a proper pace, because that's been a problem since the very beginning.
Yeah,
It
I've heard
dripped
that. I
like
remember hearing about like one village there or one town that was lost because they had basically everything they needed apart from like shells. So they just had to go back. Yeah, it's like that's
yeah,
really
it's
sad.
like the
Yeah.
UK that gave recently the biggest package ever, and that package that does not include shells.
Fuck.
The one thing that Ukraine needs the most.
Yep. Oh, well, is there any optimism now that aid is going through?
Well, in Poland, I heard Polish experts that were just sort of still very pessimistic. One Polish general said, "Yeah, it should last Ukraine for a couple of months."
Well,
The aid.
yeah.
Like it's tough because of the whole delay. It's been 6 months, and damage has been done within these 6 months. You know.
Yeah, so it's just like recovering the losses, if anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is obviously it's
stabilizing
much
the
harder to
situation.
reclaim a place than it is to hold it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very tough, a tough situation, which worries me a lot. Like I don't have confidence, even though Poland is in NATO. I don't. I'm Polish. I don't have confidence that that NATO would jump into the defense of Poland should there be trouble in Poland.
Oh, really? Like you don't think Poland would get Article 5?
It might, but I don't. Like it's like with the aid, we're giving you aid, Ukraine.
Yeah, I do wonder about that because yeah, I really wonder about the idea that
It would be like
because Article
Article
5 is like
5.
that's the end of the
Any
world.
moment now, we're gonna come in and save you. Swoop in.
Yeah, so now you're going to actually have NATO be, but then the problem is like NATO are going to, if they see a violation of Poland's sovereignty, they're going to be like, okay, well the choice is we let this happen, or Article 5, which is the end of the world, or we let it happen, and then Russia just goes further and further, and then it's just we do Article 5 later,
I
and
mean,
it's even more the end of the world. Oh fuck, that must be a horrible
sure,
position to
but
be in.
then they could go under the pretty logical assumption that has been used before historically, which is basically, well, it's Eastern Europe. It's like it's been Russian sphere of influence before. Maybe we could just agree that this region could be Russia's, and we could just work out a deal.
Yep, I think people would say that, and I think the other, I think. I don't know. I've been looking at this thing about nuclear doctrine and one of the big problems with it, and there is this suggestion. It's mostly to do with Israel, but it kind of applies everywhere. Is that the problem with nuclear weapons is that you're only ever going to use them when it's too early or when it's too late. So if you use it too early, it's like you used it in a time where you still had a military option. Like say, like Russia goes into Poland, but actually it would be possible to repel them, but you use nukes anyway, and then you look really bad. Like you look really hyper aggressive, and you look like you've just played with the fate of every human on Earth. But then if you use it too late, obviously, it's like because most countries have nuclear red lines when it's like if the army's been destroyed or if the air force has been destroyed. But by that point, it's like all the nuke is doing is just taking other people down with you. Like you're already done.
And then
Yeah.
there's the alternative of countries seeing how the Budapest Memorandum was just a lie
Yeah.
and rush to get nukes. Like Poland has applied for nukes apparently under the NATO sharing thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Is that recent?
recent. Yeah,
I wonder if
very
they'll
recent.
get it.
And it's already been like the president, who's from the old government, and the prime minister were like, "Yeah, we're ready. If we're ready to receive nukes."
Oh yeah, June 23. Oh. Because they already have, well, they have ABMs in Poland, right? They've got anti-nuclear. But,
Russia was angry about but you know, and it's like Russia already responded to that. If there will be any nukes, there will be a response from us, even though they've stationed at this point already in Belarus, I believe.
yeah.
So that's, yeah. So
Well,
that's what I do. I do Ukraine, even though I don't really do any talks with any other streamers that talk about Ukraine.
yeah,
Follow
it's, I do think it is a bit of a shame that people just lost interest in Ukraine so quickly, especially compared to Palestine as well. I've never been too sure why that selectivity is a thing. I can see why far left people don't talk about Ukraine as much because it's all the America bad thing. But
That's really strange,
yeah,
especially since I consider myself pretty left.
yeah, but you're
So
like
from my
European left, you know, not like these, not like these. I feel like
Right.
the left in Central Eastern Europe is very different from the left in like America or even like the UK. I think. I don't think they understand because I don't think most people on the far left understand exactly what Russia is or what like Russian imperialism is or the empire or even the Soviets. I feel like most of them just kind of like they tend to. I think the first assumption is that it's just not as bad as what they told us in school, right? Because it's like that's the liberal capitalist
question
narrative,
is
right?
just how much have you been told at school about Russia?
Bro, in school we were told it's bad. They were like, yeah, it was bad. Everyone got paid the same. The economy was shit. It was bad. People died. And we're like, okay. And then I'm like,
Like for example, just how much do you learn about the Russian Empire per se?
no, not really. And then, but like after that, you get to college, and then there are some like left wing like far left lecturers that I had, and they're like, actually, it wasn't as bad as people say it was. Still not great. And I'm like, okay. But then the more I read about, it, I'm like, actually, it was pretty bad. Yeah. So, but no, we just don't like. We learn about the Nazis like maybe for in at least 4 different years when we were at school until we're 18. We learn about World War II and a bit about World War One, but yeah, Russia just never really comes up that much. Not for us anyway, or
And
hasn't.
yeah, the USSR did continue Russian imperialism. Stalin basically, when the World War II was ending, when they were entering Berlin, was asked, "So how does it feel to enter the enemy's capital?" And he said, "Well, the Tsar went to Paris."
Gosh.
He compared them, he praised the Tsars, and he basically tried to mimic them, and he tried to recreate the empire. So that was his goal. He
Yeah.
sort of succeeded. So yeah, I suppose it's not taught in the West much about the, I suppose, like the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the partitions, and how that whole thing went. Which is a pretty important thing when you discuss how the inception of Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's considering that Ukraine, technically speaking, Ukraine and Poland has been a single country for longer than Ukraine was a part of Russia.
Yeah, I suppose it has, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's why we share 70% vocabulary.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of language mingling, etc. There's a lot to talk about the language thing, but you know. But I do know a lot about the history of this region, of Russia, etc., etc. here, and the Ukraine war, but as a failed Polish Jewish person, my knowledge about Israel-Palestine conflict and its history is lacking.
Yeah, it's the yeah, it's like I feel like when you get to the bottom of it, there's not that much that like massively important stuff, but I feel like just learning the history of any area for like 100 years,
What I do know is
difficult to pronounce names. Yeah.
what I do know is the time frame when there was the Polish Congress Kingdom, so still this area,
Okay.
and the inception of Zionism, like Herzl, and how Zionism in the Congress Kingdom of Poland was basically a big failure. Nobody wanted to be a Zionist in Poland.
Yeah, they did try a few places, and there was a very small
There's
group to
even
begin
this
with.
book by a pretty famous Polish war journalist
Okay.
called Konstanty Gebert, a Jewish war journalist, Jewish Polish war journalist. He wrote a book about the history of Israel called Peace with a View on War. And I read the part about Herzl, and he wrote that a close sort of cooperator affiliate of Herzl went to Poland which was part of Russia at the time, to sort of spread Zionism. And he said, Polish people are so weird, Polish Jewish people. The poor people just pray 3 times per day and look to the Zion. But when I actually mentioned going there, they oppose. They don't want to. And the sort of educated and richer ones say that to any enlightened Jewish person, the idea of being a Zionist would be a disgusting proposition.
Yeah, I think at the very beginning with Herzl,
Herzl
I think when they
died
did their
believing that it was a failed project and Jewish people are not worthy of it.
yeah, well, I think he did. There was one point when he made a 50-year prediction for there being a Jewish state, but
Sort
I
of,
think
but
it turned
he
out that he had
died
like a
bitter and saying that it failed.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that
because they
Jewish
didn't.
people
The
were.
Zionists didn't like him. To be a lot of them didn't even like him because he
Well,
died. I think he was
Zionism
trying to push
precedes
for.
him.
He was interested in like the Uganda thing, but then like around the same time that he died,
And there
everyone in
was
the
a
Congress
split
was like,
too,
"Fuck off!"
apparently.
Yeah,
It was a split around Uganda, and he sort of walked it back later. But
yeah.
like the Zionism precedes Herzl. It was just
Hmm.
different. It was more religious in nature. There were books written by Zionists before Herzl, and they were mad at him because they said that he co-opted the movement.
Yeah, that's quite true. Yeah.
And then he just died a bitter man.
Well.
And he went to Palestine once, and he didn't like it and never went there again.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And there's a lot of talking how at that time there was buying of land, but Herzl himself basically said that the whole buying of land and sending families one by one is just a stupid idea, and without a broader support, it's just a waste of time to do that.
Yeah, I feel like yeah. I don't have anything to add to that. Sorry.
True. I've watched your debate of genocide because I run a genocide channel basically, so I'm interested in
Well,
genocide.
don't we all? Yeah, it's becoming
As a topic.
Yeah, you don't ask. I didn't ask for it. It just became that way.
True. So basically, I run a channel of talking about genocide and what it is, isn't, etc.
Did you?
The UN.
So
I had a debate about genocide once, yeah, with
with-
Food Shops, the creator.
yeah. What was she saying?
Oh gosh, it was more me basically lecturing about genocide, but we were talking about, I think Lonerbox even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we were talking about whether or not Russia is committing genocide now in the war. Which
Yeah, I've heard that claim.
I believe it is.
Okay.
Do you disagree? Is that a debate in the making?
I have no idea. I don't. It's. I feel like whatever the massacre was, what was it? What do you call it? Bucha and oh fuck, what's the other one? There's the other one. Izium.
And the one there was a third.
I think it wouldn't be surprising to me if we saw what those commanders were saying before that happened, that those were genocidal acts. The whole war, I don't know. It seems like it's a war for territory, but it depends. Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
there are a lot of factors that combine together create a genocidal uh, picture in my mind. There was this great conference in Poland in the Polin Museum. I were at it. I think you're familiar. I hope the
Uh,
Polin Museum
no.
in Warsaw, the Museum of Polish Jewish History, basically.
Okay.
A big building, a big nice building where you can go to a fixed. Um, what's the word? The word is exhibition.
Okay.
Fixed exhibition where you can trace in a really well prepared way the beginning of the presence of Jewish people in what is now Poland to today
Okay.
with interactive things. And you can get this gadget and it explains to you everything in English and it even reacts to you moving from room to room.
Really?
Yeah, it's very nice. It's a very well prepared exhibition.
Out of interest, I saw this in Riga in the Occupation Museum there. I feel like there's always a sense in, at least in Baltic countries, that they basically see the Soviets and the Nazis as like equally bad. Like they see that
Those are
there was the genocide of the Nazis and then there's the genocide of the Soviets against the like intellectual class or whatever. Is that perception held in Poland as well, or do they tend to see one as worse than the other? Or
the Nazis were worse. They did worse things. They did the Holocaust in Poland.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's how. Yeah,
the
so
ones
that's how
hard
you
to
see it.
top.
But I'm just asking if that's like the common feeling in the country in general.
But they were pretty bad. That is
Mm.
a fact. Like there's this plank in the Polin Museum that says we thought we'd have it better under the Soviet occupation, but soon the Soviet oppression crushed us under its boot, something like
Hmm.
that. And I stand in a discussion with Marxist-Leninists, and they called me a Holocaust
They
revisionist.
always do that. Yeah, double genocide theory
And
they
I
call
said,
it.
"Wow,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, okay, but the genocide revisionist from the Museum of Polish Jewish History."
Yeah, they would say that because they hate Polish people, Soviets, right? Yeah, but that's the thing. Is like because I think the thing that they say that might be a little bit valid is when people say that when you make Soviets and Nazis sound the same, that's often done to sort of like downplay that inevitably downplays Nazi crimes because Nazi crimes were unambiguously worse. But I think I often
Right.
find that
Although
what happens
you
is when you say Soviets were bad, Nazis were worse, they treat that the same way. They call that Holocaust revisionism, which is insane because obviously it's just like you can
of course
easily
there
think both
were
of them were bad. Yeah.
also depends on the time frames like you can look at the Holodomor, you can look at the Great Terror after that, etc. And
Hmm.
it's a whole thing.
Interesting.
It's and also there was this Ribbentrop-Molotov thing that I've seen
Hmm.
you join a Destiny debate a year ago or something.
Yeah, that was funny.
It's
Yeah.
like I always ask, since it's such a open and shut case that it was good, and uh, the USSR was just preparing to face Germany and needed to do the Ribbentrop-Molotov. Then I guess I have two questions. One, what was the point of purging the entirety of the higher ups in the army then?
Hmm.
Why do that if you're preparing for an imminent German attack? Why kill all of your generals and officers?
Well, I feel like
Oh,
that's because I hear that argument when they say that they needed to do Molotov-Ribbentrop because they were not in a position to fight, and I'm like, yeah, that is kind of true. They weren't in a position to fight, but that's
yeah, because you
because
made it
Stalin
happen.
spent the whole of the 30s murdering his own his best guys. Yeah, so
And
it's like,
also, when the attack happened, on paper, technically speaking, the USSR was still had more stuff, so it could have at least held the attack. But it forbade. Did you know that in the Soviet Union, soldiers actually had live ammunition kept in a separate place, and the soldiers had to be given the live ammunition to be able to use it?
I did not know that. Fuck.
And that the planes were not fueled. And again, they had to get permission to fuel the planes and to be able to take off because Stalin was afraid that the army might rebel against him. So he kept these little, security measures to make sure that the army was not able to rebel against him at any moment.
And that was in place when
When
Barbarossa
the
started.
when
Fuck
Barbarossa
me.
started. So that's why by the second day or something of the invasion, the USSR lost 2,000 planes,
Mm-hmm. Fuck me.
its entire fleet. Good times, yeah.
Yeah, well, Soviet incompetence always a good story.
So yes. So I saw your debate
Hmm.
and I commented on it. It was like over 2 hour of my reaction to your debate with Kevin Logan. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had
Seems like
my
fair
thoughts.
use. Okay. Yeah, what are the thoughts?
So for example, the quote, in my opinion, the added context did not make it better. The added context, the thing about there being innocent civilians, because to my ear, listen, it's my opinion, it's my personal opinion. Don't take it as fact, but in my opinion, it sounded like what he was saying is yes, there are innocents in Gaza. But your innocence does not mean much if you have rockets aimed at me from your kitchen. So, in order to defend myself, which I have the right to do, in the end, I do have to kill you.
Um, so that part of the quote is him saying, yeah, yes, there are people who are innocent who have nothing to do with this, but if you're
But I
firing
still have to
rockets,
kill you,
well,
basically,
no, but
because you're
he's saying
firing
rockets
rockets at
though, yeah,
me.
because I think if a civilian fires rockets, they are a target, no?
But do they? It says sort of that the implication is since your home is being used as a hub for firing rockets, I have to
Oh,
kill you because I'm defending myself.
yeah, so if your home is used as a hub, that's where it gets difficult because obviously in military doctrine, if any civilian building or location is being used for military purposes, it compromises its protected status. You still have to you just have to make a calculation. I don't think you could kill like a house with 10 civilians in it because there's one guy with a gun there. I don't think you could do that. But if it's like there's a rocket launcher that's got 4 people operating it and it's next door to a civilian building and there's a chance like you might damage that building and maybe like one civilian will die. I think legally and morally you probably could do that because it's like
The,
otherwise anyone who just
the
goes next to a civilian is safe forever, right?
the second big thought that I had was like it seems like you sort of analyze things in isolation, events in isolation, and I sort of feel like because there's an argument, I guess whether or not it's true is to be discussed and sort of as I said, I don't have big knowledge on the conflict, so I'm operating on uh bait sort of more broad uh theoretical thing of what genocide is and isn't. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say that there is probably a case to be made that if you take certain things, certain individual things, and sort of put them together, so water being taken away, electricity being taken away, with the bombing, with the food thing, which I have to look into more,
Mm-hmm.
with as well with if you take these factors and group them together, then you're starting to get a picture of what sort of environment the Palestinians are in.
Mm-hmm.
And this could potentially tick the box of creating an environment that makes it impossible for a group to live in
Okay.
within the convention.
So the reason because I think I was accused of doing this yesterday, was getting too hyper focused on details of particular things. The reason
Yeah, but I mean that's good to do, but you
uh,
also have to see how these particular things interact with one another and how they work as a group thing.
yeah, of
You have to
course,
do all the three
yeah.
things, right?
And but the problem I run into is when I've got someone listing like 10 things at me, or say someone like I think if someone wants to talk about like the water situation and the electricity and the food
Yeah.
and the quotes and the proportionality and the I think kill zones or whatever was brought up, like if we got that, I kind of think well we do actually need to look at and if I think that all 5 or 6 of these things have been either mischaracterized or not quite summarized in the best way, then I kind of just have to pick one at random and go into it. And then it's like,
Sure.
but I do think that that's more or less where I stand, is that the quotes, for example, even like the one you mentioned, even with
Yeah.
the caveats of him saying that, like, no, we don't mean they're all military targets. We're just saying that, like, they support Hamas and some of them are going to have like rockets going off near them. So,
Well,
like,
it's
if they're
not
saying
even
that,
like
it's
it's
like,
not even that. It's not even saying that. It's not even saying anything about supporting or not supporting Hamas. It's basically saying there are rockets being fired from your home. We basically we would love not to kill you. We have no choice but to kill you because we have to defend ourselves. So even if you're innocent, we have to do it.
yeah, but yeah,
That was my
yeah,
read.
so the problem is, to me, that is the concept of collateral damage, which I don't think is it's not genocide. And it's
The
definitely
concept,
it's
but
not
the
even, it might not
concept
even be
of
illegal. If it's proportionate, it might not
but
even be illegal to do that.
the concept of collateral damage should be like not something that a group or government feels it needs to do.
What do you mean needs to? As well, if they're in a situation where there is very little distinction between the combatants and the civilians, because the combatants dress as civilians, they use civilian buildings, they don't have any protections for their civilians. They don't have bomb shelters for them to go in. They don't let the civilians hide in the tunnels or anything. If they're doing all that, then you kind of are leading us in a situation where collateral
I
damage is
feel
going to be
like this
high.
calls for a little bit more as if you want to avoid killing civilians. I feel like it requires much more precise operations rather than bombing.
I think that's a good argument. I don't think that qualifies for genocide, though. I think that, so the argument you could make, and this is the argument I made yesterday, is that there have definitely been a couple of strikes that, probably more than a couple, but like high profile ones, that do seem very much like they were willing to accept quite a lot of collateral damage to get not that many military targets, like Jabalia,
Okay, if
where it
I were
was,
to
yeah.
debate on whether or not a genocide is happening here, I would have to do a lot of preparation because my
Yeah.
knowledge on the exact things it's lacking. I
I think
could
the,
do fare a lot better on debating on whether or not Ukraine right now is a genocide.
well, I think
But
the case
Israel
for
Palestine,
genocide in Ukraine is much stronger than it is for Israel. So yeah, I probably wouldn't even
well,
fight you
you
that hard on
have
that.
the clear-cut case of children being transferred from one group to the other
Hmm.
forcefully.
Yeah.
So that already takes the right off the bat. That takes it.
Yeah. I feel like the issue I have, and I definitely had it in that debate yesterday, is that I feel like when we get into that particular debate over genocide, I feel like the word genocide isn't really being used in the way that it's supposed to communicate,
Well,
because
there
I
is
feel like it's
another
being
thing
used
that
as
I
a
sort of said
uh,
when reacting, that we're entering two different conversations, sort of, because what is and isn't a genocide is not necessarily the same question as what will be recognized as genocide by law, right? And
mhm.
fundamentally, because at the beginning, Kevin Logan asked, "What is your definition? What definition are you using?" And I sort of said, "Well, the truth is, every single streamer just goes with the UN convention because that's the thing that has any weight in law, and that's basically the only definition that most streamers know, even though in academia, technically speaking, there are 50 different definitions in circulation, but this one just happens to be the only one that has any grounding in law. But it also is important to remember that the UN convention itself has its problems and limitations that we need to take into consideration when analyzing whether or not something, if we perceive something to be a genocide. Like, the easiest thing to point out is that certain groups were just crossed out of the convention because the USSR
Mhm.
intervened and was very strongly against it, along with a few other countries like Saudi Arabia. And that caused the groups to be crossed out, like the political group and social group, they were crossed out. And that would make a lot more cases for genocide, legally speaking, a lot simpler.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have no idea why, for example, you can't genocide people if they're gay, right? Of course you can. Of course
I
it
feel
should be
like
the case. Yeah,
that would
like,
be a social group,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it would be a social group. Yeah. So I agree with that. Obviously, I don't think that changes things for Gaza in particular. There would be different measures you'd have
Oh,
to
that
change for
would be
that.
a whole different
Yeah,
but
but that's why I
I'm
think,
just saying broadly that it's important to see the limitations of the tools that we're working with, especially since the USSR sort of complained about it because it knew that if the group stayed in, then they were basically doing it. But of course, there's the whole issue of, because at the end of the day, even if the Holodomor, it is mostly accepted as genocide in my opinion, but even it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because we have this one of the most basic rules of law, that law does not work in retrospect. So even if those certain things that were done were genocides, they could not be tried, because law is not a thing that works in retrospect. It works forward from the moment that is introduced
Hmm.
and put into practice. So, and the Genocide Convention was agreed on and ratified after those things happened.
Hmm.
Although the US had its problems with ratifying the convention during Lemkin's lifetime, because there were certain racial tensions that the US was worried would be classified as genocidal.
Yeah, and I guess the problem you end up in is that at the end of the day, the UN Convention as it stands now is the only definition of genocide that's actually enforceable, that you can actually take it to
Yes.
the ICJ. And I feel like I run into this problem
Well,
where
and
if
the
I'm arguing
ICC
with
as
people,
well,
yeah,
and
yeah. And I feel like the problem I run into with people is that they talk about how is that they'll say it fits within the convention, but then they'll say, "Oh, it's because of this X thing," and I'm like, "Well, that thing you're describing isn't actually quite what you're saying it is. It would actually be downgraded to this." And they're saying, "Oh, well, if it's not, if that doesn't fit the convention as we understand it, then it should." And it's like, okay, so I feel like we're having two debates at once, but I don't know. Fuck.
sort of, I guess. I mean, as Lemkin said, if you want the thing to happen, you have to make the law. You have to
Mm-hmm.
make the law. And also, Lemkin, much like Herzl, died basically thinking that that is genocide convention was a failure, which unfortunately, in some aspects, he was right,
I think that's true to a degree.
because it meant there are countries that can sort of get away with these things and not face any consequences, like China, for example, through its connections and through its certain economic relations, and um, through countries being dependent on China. They sort of, yeah, it's not genocide, like the Arabic states, I believe, sort of are like, yeah, it's not genocide because they were sort of dependent on on this relationship with China.
Yeah, and well, the good thing about laws, at least, is that they can be the interpretation can change and new precedents can be set. For example, although I don't agree with the Israel one at all, I actually don't even think it's close. I do think it's a good thing that the ICJ put in those provisional measures. I think it's a good thing that they specifically for other cases as well, set a deliberately low standard for plausibility because they don't want to be the body that missed a potential genocide ever before it was too late. So I think that's actually a very good thing that they do that. And the fact that they've put pressure on Israel to improve the humanitarian aid situation. And for the most part, it seems to have pushed some changes. There are a lot more trucks going in than there used to be. And so that
So
is
what do you
I consider a
think
good thing. Like,
about what do you think about the news that the ICC might potentially put out an arrest warrant on Netanyahu?
go for it. I think he's broken quite a lot of laws. So yeah.
The ICC, that's the whole thing. The ICC is the body that specifically was created to deal with the crime of genocide.
Is it just genocide? I thought the ICC can do other things as well. Can they not do you for war crimes?
It's the ICJ is the thing that International Court of Justice. That's the thing that deals with crimes, and the ICC was specifically created for dealing with the crime of genocide.
I thought the ICC was individuals and ICJ was states. Can the ICC only do genocide?
I mean, I'm not sure if it. I know that it was created solely for that. Let me Google ICC real quick.
I might be wrong as well. What can the ICC arrest people for?
Let's see. Let's be a Destiny and do the.
Listen, it's the best way. Prosecutes those accused of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. So it's like the big three. So yeah, they can, if they're arresting, even if they want to try him for genocide, why not? Like I don't know, but if they want to arrest him for war crimes, 100%, I think he has committed war crimes. I think he's been okay with that. So yeah, it'd be good to see that on trial.
Especially since even pro-Israel writers and speakers and intellectuals, like the aforementioned author of the book that I talked about earlier, said that Netanyahu and his cabinet are fascists.
Oh really?
If big, and he's an Israel supporter. He actually believes, and he's a big genocide expert. I forgot to mention that he's a big genocide person. He wrote a whole book called um, Final Solutions. Genocide. There's no English word for it. That's an interesting thing that the author has pointed out. There is no English word for the perpetrator of genocide. Did
Oh.
you realize that? Or
Um, I mean,
there's
they just call
no
me
word
genocide
that
box, so
describes
that's yeah, I suppose
like there
so.
there is no word that describes the perpetrators of genocide in English. You have this in Polish, you have this in many languages. I sort of coined it by talking about genocide. I just say genocider,
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
right?
genocidal
Because
maniac. But then, yeah,
there's the French génocidaire, and I refuse to use it because it's so French.
yeah, good
And
move.
in English, it would just sound ridiculous. Oh yeah, you're the génocidaire, you know? So I just say genocider. So I guess the title would be Final Solutions, Genociders and Their Work.
Okay.
Because he, as a war journalist, he actually interviewed, which makes me laugh because certain war journalists get flack for interviewing right-wing sector people in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And this Polish war journalist, pretty well-respected one, straight up, because the thing about genocide is that, that there could be a whole rant that I could go into, that people that commit genocide fundamentally see themselves as moral people, as moral agents, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They see themselves as people that do something for a greater good. They don't enjoy it. They see it as a necessary thing, a necessary step, a duty, if you will, that they have to perform in order to create a better world.
Mm-hmm.
Like genocide is, as the author described, the bastard child of the Enlightenment.
Hmm.
And he said that, you know, many perpetrators of genocide are actually personally really nice people. Because he interviewed them. He interviewed people that did uh, genocide. He interviewed people that did the Rwanda genocide. A person that would go out, take the machete, and chop people to bits. And he told this author that, you know, a human being is a big animal, and it is hard physical labor to go and chop someone to pieces with a machete. But you know, I am a serious person, and I cannot just stand aside and let other people do the work. I am a responsible adult, you
Hmm.
know? I
Yeah,
can
I've
just stand aside
heard
and
the
let.
story about Reinhard Heydrich from the Holocaust and how he would do his work in the day and then he would go home with his friends and they would listen to like Beethoven's string quartets and cry at how beautiful the sounds were and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And there's this also this aspect of the thing that uh, is very actually Germany, at least officially, punished soldiers who just killed uh, Jewish people, uh, not for this greater good, greater mission, but for personal petty motives or personal pleasure.
mhm.
Were actually tried for the murder, which ironically and weirdly enough, Jewish people were giving back their humanity and death in those cases.
Have you ever seen those films, those narrated films from the Obersalzberg? I think it's the Third Reich in color.
No.
It's the Obersalzberg, the resort that the Nazi leaders would meet in outside of Munich. They would go to this really picturesque German area in the mountains, and they would just be like drinking tea and having their kids there. And like the narration is literally just like this is Hitler walking around with his with one of the military generals, and they're just like playing tiddlywinks with these kids. And it's like half an hour from this clip, Hitler's about to sign a order to murder 30,000 Poles. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
Yeah, and they're just
Like
strolling on this little balcony with the beautiful mountains in the background, and there are kids playing. It's so haunting. Yeah.
well, it's important to sort of that's why these sort of talks are important because understanding the perspective of the victims is important, but as well as the perspective of the perpetrators to understand that they are not some different kinds of humans that that they're much closer to us than we like to believe. And if we understand that, then it helps us in the very important task of the UN Convention, which is prevention.
Mm-hmm.
If we understand how the perpetrator of a genocide thinks, if we sort of, and this is again why it's important to, it's not a bad thing to talk to people like this, to get to sort of interview them, etc. It's not because I listen to enough opinions that it's quote unquote platforming. It's very childish view of the topic.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's very important to get these perspectives, to understand, as again, how a perpetrator thinks, because if you know that, then you know what to look for example, and you know what preventative measures you can take.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very big and important thing. So
Interesting.
yeah, I'm a genocide. I'm becoming a genocide expert,
Well,
which is why I say that I run a genocide channel.
I wouldn't call myself that, but it's definitely a topic of interest. It keeps
Because I
coming
keep
back.
reading about different genocides and about like the Herero and Namad, which is because I had a few points of not necessarily agreement with you. Like you said that, and that's not even about genocide, that's about a war crime. That you said that the electricity thing was not necessarily a war crime when it comes to Gaza, right?
As far as I remember.
Yes, but there's a bit of a problem with that, no? I guess it raises a question. I guess I'm not gonna super make a hard stand, but it does raise a question that I would pose to you.
Hmm.
Because electricity is crucial for running hospitals, and hospitals have life support systems, and without electricity all that goes kaput and people just die. Should that be considered okay to do?
Morally, I feel like you would need to have a very good reason
Should
for
that
it.
even
Like,
be
so
considered okay
the
under
only
law?
the only way that it would be considered okay, I
International, I
think,
mean.
would be that if you can show that the enemy military is using that electricity to support their war effort against you, and it is doing so to a degree that is a sufficient threat to you and your soldiers.
Right, but would even that be sufficient grounds in law, international, I guess, in this case, to just render potentially hundreds of patients to be disposable?
To stop giving them electricity, I think, at least in Israel's position, I don't think there's enough of a threat for them to justify that. No.
Because
If you were getting
because they're
invaded by like the Wehrmacht or some shit, I feel like cutting off
like,
electricity is a way to slow down their
right, which
effort. You
is
kind of have no
I
choice, right?
remember there were many reports in the news, including Polish news, of just patients just dying because electricity was cut off from them.
I don't think it was because electricity was cut off. The problem there was that, first of all, generally in any war, it's
No,
going to be.
the news specifically said of like life support systems not being able to function, incubators not being able to function, and etc. etc.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those exact cases were sort of, and
Yeah,
I think that sort of crosses the threshold of a crime, no?
I mean, it probably does for a crime. But as far as the hospitals go,
Well,
I
we're
don't
not
know if like
discussing necessarily
because I think
genocide now.
this is talking about crimes. So yeah, I think so. When it comes to Nasser Hospital, apparently I think there was like electricity cut. I think for Al Shifa, I think electricity was still allowed in there. The problem was there's a lack of fuel. But even when the IDF was surrounding the place, they were to some degree bringing fuel in. They were actually like giving like fuel to the hospital and for generators. But
I'm
again,
not
the
sure
issue
about
is that the I'm happy to accept that like it seems like there there would definitely have to be some investigation into whether or not they crossed the criminal threshold with doing that because they quite possibly or very likely did. The only problem is that there has to be, if you're going to do that, and like the ICC has got warrants for Hamas as well, is that it does have to account for the fact that that hospital was not a 100% clean like civilian area because it had militants in it. It's been used by militants for decades, or at least one decade. Even Amnesty have got reports about them using Al Shifa Hospital to torture dissidents and shit like that. So I think that's where you get into a bit of an issue. Yeah, but
there was a second big disagreement that I had, but I just failed. Like it just vaporized out of my mind. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Water, foods, proportionality. I feel like there were quite a few things that came up.
Oh gosh. Where was I? Where was that thing that was just that also raised a question from me? But I'm trying to remember. It was an over 2 hour react. It was a big react. It was. I'll try to remember.
Mhm.
In the meantime, we can talk about different things. It's my Polish brain. It's okay. It's the Slavic mind.
Mm-hmm. I
It's
don't know.
okay. I'm
There were a
the
lot of things brought up. Not really that much
it's
time to
the
respond to all of them. Yeah.
it's I'm the Eastern European representative of the quote unquote space. Mm, and Jewish, for that matter, Polish Jewish, which makes it embarrassing that I know so little about the conflict.
Is this a new disagreement or is this one we've already covered?
And you
Okay.
just don't remember what it was.
Something about hospitals, something about
Uh,
removal, something about I don't know.
there was quite a lot. Was something. I'll try to remember. I'll try to remember.
You know what?
If
I
I don't
always wanted
remember
to.
by the end of the conversation, I'll just DM or something. Or you can watch my reaction, which
Okay.
is
Oh
two
God.
hours 30 minutes long.
Listen, this is no insult to you. This is an insult to the debate that I just don't want to think about again. I mean, I'll put the segment up, but yeah. Let me find this. I want to see.
Wow, I can't believe I put up a segment about me reacting to it before you even put it up as a segment.
Yeah. Well, I've got a huge backlog of segments right now. How many hospitals are? I remember this claim that people saying the hospitals are all out of order right now, but I think what's the actual number? I think it's
I
like
think that we were.
there are 35 for hospitals in Gaza total, 36. Only 10 are functioning right now. This was 3rd of April. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
Something that we talked about, and then I thought that I had a disagreement. But
Aid supplies, quotes.
quotes. I only focused on that one quote that was actually provided. That's what my understanding of it was.
Yeah, someone sent me a video. Apparently, there's a whole bunch of stuff missing from it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already talked about how the aspects should be sort of looked as well, like how they sort of create a wider environment, in my opinion.
I mean, I think that's probably why the ICJ went with plausibility, though, right? Because I think at least the justification for one of the judges who voted for the provisional measures was he said he doesn't think they've shown good enough evidence that the war itself, that the military campaign is plausibly genocidal. He said it wasn't even plausible. But he did say that some of those quotes do leave open the plausible option that things could escalate in that way. So I think that was one of the things that was
Right. I
considered.
mean, prevention is, in my opinion, the more important role of the UN Convention,
Yeah.
since punishment means that a failure of prevention has
Yeah, and
been.
you do have to. Yeah, you do have, and that's why one of the provisional measures was that they need to show that they are criminally prosecuting people who are openly calling for genocide as well. And I think they said that I think some civilians in Israel have been under investigation for that. I don't know if any politicians are in trouble yet, but we'll see.
Yes. So as you can see, a lot of things have been happening. I'm slowly trying to grow and do thingies and cover the war in Ukraine and other political things and history. I'm trying to do more history.
What's your new history project that you want to do more of?
Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth.
Okay.
Everything goes back to it. I mean, it's very topical when it comes to the current conflict. I've been reading books. I've been listening to Timothy Snyder a lot and reading Timothy Snyder's Bloodlands book.
Okay. Yeah, I've been meaning to look at that one for a while.
And there's a series of Yale University lectures by Timothy Snyder about the history of Ukraine.
Yeah, I've watched a few of them for sure. Yeah.
Very good. Although to me, as a Eastern European, it sort of feels like it's missing steps. Because when you learn about the history of this region, like in Poland, you begin with the Slavic tribes and how they united. And then you go to the um, conversion to Christianity, and Timothy Snyder sort of begins with the conversion to Christianity,
Okay.
the history. But that's understandable because we have a lot less material on the Slavic tribes because not there were no real written records, so we have to depend on other things to talk about it.
Hmm.
It's like a whole thing.
Like oral history.
Yeah,
That's
and the
always fun.
difference. It's very interesting to sort of um, hear Timothy Snyder says, "Oh, there are those wonderful things that Slavs have, like all the little rituals that come from the old beliefs that were there, and we could talk about it. And actually, a lot of those small rituals just became part of like festivities, like sort of that a thing that you just sort of do as part of the tradition. Like when I was small, we still sort of did the whole Marzanna or Morana in different languages. We
Okay.
would get this doll, we would burn it, and we would throw it to the river. And that would indicate that the winter has ended and the spring has begun.
That sounds like fun. I feel like we
And the
don't do
doll
enough stuff like that these
represents,
days. Yeah.
yeah, in Poland there used to be a thing that we would do, especially when I was a child.
That's cool.
It represents the killing of the goddess of death or something,
Nice.
the representation of death. So those little pagan quote unquote things, because I have this feeling that in the English speaking world, paganism is just basically treated as this, I don't know, this sort of equivalent of Christianity, like this religion called paganism, which is not exactly how that works,
Hmm.
you know? There's no unified church of paganism. It was just a bunch of different beliefs, a bunch of different rituals, a bunch of different things that sort of people did that was sort of just bagged like under the umbrella of paganism because it was not Christian.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
So it's like there's no unified religion of paganism. That's not a thing.
Hmm.
That's right.
Interesting.
Still trying to remember what I disagree with you on. I mean, the to be fair, I try to be, and the reaction itself, I try to be more, less, and I went both ways with that. Like, I went more like, not necessarily, oh, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, they're dumb. And more like, I mean, I could ask a question like this,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like, for example, there were a few moments when Kevin Logan said something, and I basically said, well, the easiest response that Lonerbox could give here is, yes, I agree. This happened. This is a crime. It's a war crime. The war crime that's happening, and consequences should be brought down on Israel, but it doesn't necessarily um, establish that there's a genocide happening,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like
which would need to sort
I
of
feel like I said that a couple of times.
at the beginning.
But yeah, but I guess we do get into the issue where like I feel like once I've said it, I feel like I shouldn't have to. Like I know I have to because that's just what audiences are like or what people are like. But it always just feels like very unfair that it's like that if you don't accept this framing with like this like kind of what I thought was fairly just like surface level bullet point evidence without much depth to it and actually a bit of inaccuracy as well. It's like, but if you can't embrace that, then it must be like the immediate ascribing of bad faith and all that. Like I don't know. I just kind of like
In this case, I'm
just
not
gave
even
up on it
saying
fairly
one way
quickly.
or
Yeah.
the other if it was or wasn't, if it is or isn't a genocide, because I felt that was not exactly my role in the react, since my knowledge on the subject matter is sort of lacking for me to sort of go in and say, oh, that's not true because
Hmm.
this, and this, because I lack the knowledge of this, and this. But I could sort of say that, in this case, you could just there's a matter of going further into the thing and establishing on whether or not there's a genocide happening and not just like something else, which is a war crime.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
But
I
then
felt like I just had
describe the
to.
whole.
Yeah, I felt like I was just trying to go into details on some things, but it just wasn't happening. But whatever. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. It's just
Like usually those.
I'm kind of reaching a position where if someone's telling me that they're maybe that they're like I don't want to fall out over this when I'm just like asking a few questions or making a few points on a disagreement, then I feel like I just don't need that in my life. I feel like I'm too old to deal with that nonsense.
Old. You feel old. You feel like you're old.
Well, I don't know. Not actually too old, but just like there would have been a time earlier in my life when I would have tried really hard to appease people who I thought were being like unfair to me and all that. But it's like I just don't
Actually,
need it anymore.
fairly recently, I saw you debate a person on. As they went in talking about Israel Palestine, and then they started talking about Ukraine,
Oh, that
about
guy, the Hamas
yeah,
Irish
the
guy. Yeah.
that was Irish. That it was an Irish guy.
Well, I think he lives in Ireland or he does like Irish activism, but he's definitely Middle Eastern, North African origins. But yeah.
It doesn't sound Irish. Maybe I'm just stereotyping.
No, yeah, he called himself that. He said he was like from some Irish organizations. I was like, okay, yeah.
But like he started saying about Mariupol, and then I actually considered um, calling in, but I guess Dylan Burns crashed your stream or something.
Oh, I can set you up with you can come in whenever. You can set I can set you up with him if you want to debate Ukraine.
To debate Ukraine
Yeah, with him. Would that not be something you're
against
interested
them,
in?
debating Ukraine with Dylan Burns. We'll
No,
think
not
about
Dylan
it.
Burns, the guy, the
The
guy.
guy.
Yeah, the
You
guy.
want me to set up with the guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be interested
There you
actually.
go. Yeah, I was
Like
wondering why you wouldn't do that.
I would. Yeah. I was like, wait, you want me to debate Ukraine with Dylan Burns? Why?
Okay. No, not Dylan. Definitely not. Let's see. Okay. I'll wait. Is he
Yeah,
wait,
let's.
he's not a deleted wait. He's not a deleted user on Discord. Why? He
Yeah,
DM'd me
I wanna.
he DM'd me a few days ago. I didn't read it because he's muted, but he's saying he martyred himself for me.
What?
Wait, what is this?
Oh well, yeah, I want to debate the guy because at one point he said something that just made my brain explode.
This is a document
Lucy
about
ran. Wait, well, what did I run from?
this is a document
I'm
about
looking at your chat.
Dariusin. Okay.
What
the
did what did I run from?
I don't know, but this guy, he's just sent me 2 PDFs of
You ran from Dylan Burns. Oh, I see.
propaganda pieces. Okay. What the fuck?
I didn't run from Dylan Burns. I'd win that debate.
Obviously.
I have the expertise of being born in Eastern Europe.
I think this
The
guy is
perk, being born like in RPGs, I was born with a perk of being Eastern European.
Oh, I found the wrong person. Fuck. Okay, hang on. I'll ask. Should I ask him now if you want
Yeah.
to talk to him? Okay.
And then, because that person said something that was just mind blowing to me, like the biggest mind blowing thing that the person said in that debate, the whole thing was when he said, yeah, Russia took kidnapped children, but they were all orphans. I was like,
Who made them orphans?
yeah, but that's not even the main problem of that statement, to be honest.
No? Were they not orphans?
A lot of them were orphans, but the main problem with this statement is that they were not orphans like in a vacuum. They were, first of all, they had guardians. They were usually in the orphanage system. And even a lot of the children, because you may not know, Poland actually took some amount of orphan children because Ukraine did not want them to be kidnapped, you know? So they were taken to Poland alongside with their guardians.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things that I've learned when reading about Ukrainian orphans that were in Poland. First of all, just because someone's an orphan, it does not follow that they don't have any living relatives. That's an important thing to know. There are orphans that actually still have living relatives, but they were put in the orphanage system because of a difficult family situation, for example.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
And there's this whole difficult aspect to it that and it puts the whole topic into perspective when you read how the children in Poland, the orphans were given very sort of a good environment in which the people that were taking care of them, their guardians, alongside with the staff in Poland, were trying to recreate their schedules as they were in Ukraine, to the times when they were doing things, providing them with a life as close as possible to the one that they had in Ukraine. And still they sort of had trauma. Still they missed their friends. Some of them even missed their family members that they were sort of still had contact with, even though they were in the orphanage system, and many other like traumatic sort of things, even though they were giving us sort of best environment as possibly possible considering the circumstances. And now imagine children that would undergo trauma in pretty good conditions, that are just kidnapped. Russia, bam, we're changing your nationality, you're Russian now, forget about your life, and we're actually possibly even changing your name.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just compounding, like, I don't know, I'd say even tenfold on the thing that I've described just now, the trauma of not being with your friends, not being with an environment that is familiar to you, family, possibly, because as I've said, there are orphans that still have living family members. It's
Yeah. Well.
So that's why the statement of, oh, they might have been kidnapped but they were all orphans, just sort of blew my mind.
Yeah.
Considering all that.
There were quite. Yeah. That guy was pretty special. Well, I'll ask him if he wants to chat to you. See what he says.
Perfect.
I'll hook you up. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I jump off to other things?
I don't know. Is there anything you'd like to ask me? If there's any self-promotion that I can maybe become a big channel.
Well, you can
Oh,
self-promote if you want, of course. Yeah.
of course. Wait. Have you ever seen anything of mine? The moment of truth.
Have I? I feel like I've
Huh?
watched. Oh yeah, I watched you doing that video on Chud Logic because he was reviewing it. Yeah,
That
yeah, I
was
watched
just
that.
me doing silly voices.
Yeah, I did. That's I remember that. I remember like, oh, she's doing silly voices. Yeah, I watched that one.
That was not me at my best. I had later a conversation with Chad Logic. I'm not sure if you're aware.
Oh, I watched that as well. Yeah, over the
Oh,
Travelers. Yeah, yeah, I watched that.
oh,
Yeah.
you watched me talk with Chad Logic directly. What did you think of that?
Um, it didn't seem like he had a very good answer to what to do with Travelers in the UK, but I don't remember following it all that closely. But yeah.
Because I believe it was a very strange thing, because I believe I was called on short notice to just call in and talk to him. I think he wanted to have a lol cow to milk, quote unquote, for the foreseeable future at the time. And then he realized he wouldn't get that from me. And then he said we should debate Travelers next week. He never did. And then he never spoke about me again.
Well, imagine agreeing to a debate with you and then not doing it.
True.
Yeah,
True.
well, one day though, you know, I never
One
gave it a
day.
time frame, did I? I just said later. Okay,
It's true.
cool.
I
All
guess
right.
that means I win.
Well, you did make a bunch of videos about me. Look at this, Lonerbox Manifesto, part 1, 2, 3. Is this the
Yeah.
trans stuff?
Listen. I'm just gonna say that when a person does a manifesto, it's a bad sign. You shouldn't do manifestos.
Well, I call them Google Docs. They're not manifestos.
I was pretty harsh in those videos, but
That is what it is. I mean, I don't like doing manifestos for no reason, but I feel like if 3 or 4 people
And it
with
just
loud
feels
voices
like,
are making insane claims
I don't,
against you, I'm like, okay,
I
I
don't know. It
better
just
cover
feels
these,
like
right? Yeah. Fuck.
just doing manifestos. It feels overboard, just like my husband did so many manifestos. You might have heard
Okay.
of him, Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, like, I understand. It seems overboard to a viewer, but from my end, when I'm spending like an entire month having like what's probably like thousands of people calling you a genocide denier and a Holocaust denier. I'm like, all right, we're going to catalog all this and tell you why everyone's full of shit. Yeah, I don't know. I think they said they were going to respond to that, but they never did. So, well,
Listen, we've already made that debate. We already had the debate about when the Holocaust started.
yeah, we
I
did.
won. I won that
Oh,
debate.
yeah, I
think.
forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just I keep winning. I keep stacking up wins. Like, although I only debated you on food shops,
Okay. Well,
and then I can debate that guy. That'll be my third debate.
that guy's good content. You should debate him. Anyway,
True.
do you have a? Do you want me to link your channel in the chat before we
Yes.
call it? Okay,
Wait.
cool.
Do you? Can you?
Yeah, I'm gonna have it open. Well, I did. 1 second.
Oh,
Here you are. Okay. Yeah, I'm subscribed to you. Yeah.
you are
Okay.
subscribed to me.
Yeah. Why not?
You should join my White Forest page and become a subscriber there.
Oh wow. Listen, one thing at a
It's like
time. Okay.
it's like when Chad Logic said, "Why do you have so many Patreons of even though you're so small? That's suspicious." And I said, "Well, that's because people like what I do and become Patreons. You could become a Patreon as well.
True. What, me or Chud
You
Logic?
never, you and Chad Logic.
Okay.
Oh, I have a self promo to make because I've not said it in a long time. I'm an artiste. You see."
Okay.
If you look at my channel, you see that there are hand-drawn things on the thumbnails. I drew them myself. In fact, the animated profile picture on the Discord, I also animated,
Oh yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I see
And
it.
so on my Patreon, if someone becomes a Patreon, then each month, okay, the amount you pledge becomes a discount from an artwork that you can commission.
Interesting. Oh, so you got that's how you get your patrons in. You got little perks. Cool.
Yeah, that's the big perk, that if you pledge an amount, each month you can use that amount as a discount from an
Discounted
artwork.
from 1 commission per month. Hey.
Yeah,
Cool. Okay. Well. Cool. All right. Well,
yeah,
it's been
that you
nice chatting
too.
to you. I've linked your channel
True.
in the
Thank you. Thank
description.
you.
Go check Lucy out. All right. I'm sure I'll speak to you soon. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
I'll
Take
see
care.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Braz. Oh, hang on. I need to disconnect. Okay. All right. Yeah. I like her a lot. Yeah, she used to really hate me, but it's